let's start with the prayers. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Panchadasi is a text which gives us the essence of the Vedas. The Vedas, especially the Vedanta portion, is taught in Bhagavad Gita, Upanishads, and Brahma Sutra. Many seekers, even after study of 25, 30 years, they do not understand what is the essence. They are groping in darkness. They were ignorant before the study, and they remain ignorant throughout the life with reference to their own nature. This aspect of the teaching, that the teaching relates to my own self, does not come so easily. The Vedas give us a vision of the creation, the vision of the universe. Bhagavad Gita, chapter 10 and 11, very beautiful vision is given by Lord Krishna to Arjuna. In several Upanishads, the teachers, the guru, the acharya teaches the disciple the same vision of what was taught in the Gita. In Brahma Sutra, we analyze, Veda Vyasa has analyzed in 555 sutras the essence of creation. But what is this essence? What is this reality which is behind this universe? In order to understand this, many acharyas in the past have written textbooks, because this, what we are studying today, is a very, very ancient teaching. Very, very ancient. I mean, it's right from the start of creation till today, there have been several jivas who have come and tried to take a dip into these three texts. And the only purpose to learn these texts is to see if there is any other purpose of life. Dharma, Artha, Kama are not the only purpose, is understood by an intelligent person when he has seen the world which can offer these three goals. The seeker tries to find out, is there anything? And that is where he comes to the acharya and asks this. I have seen so much of this creation, but I don't see any purpose behind it. Jivas come, jivas go. Creation remains. Acharya, like Swami Vidyaranya, has taken a lot of pains to understand the problem of the students. What he has done is, in 15 chapters, he has try to bring out the purpose of creation, the essence of the Veda, and he has taken a few topics for very deep analysis. One of this topic is Panchakosha Viveka. Shankaracharya in his Tattvabodha has written the definition of Atma as something which is beyond the three bodies, physical, mental, and causal. Something beyond the three states, waking, dream, and sleep. And the third aspect, something which is beyond the five koshas. In this chapter 3, Panchakosha Viveka is taken up. And in the first 12 mantras, Swami Vidyaranya has negated the five koshas as the not self, as the anatma. The main reason he gives is that the body is inert. It is jadam. The mind is jadam. The causal body is also jadam, inert. There is no difference at all between the five elements which are outside experienced by the individual and this body. Absolutely no difference. In Vivek Chudamani, Shankaracharya goes on and on and on, and he says each kosha he takes and gives several reasons. So if you want to study the essence of that first 12 verses of this chapter 3, you can go dive into Vivek Chudamani. There, Shankaracharya elaborates on these five koshas as not the self. If the five koshas is not the self, what is the self? What is the inner content of this body? And the Veda says the inner content is described as Satyam Jnanam Anantam in Taittiriya Upanishad. Satyam Jnanam Anantam. Vidyaranya takes Jnanam portion as the first topic to be analyzed, which he took from verses 13 to 28. We have finished that portion. After that, we went into the second aspect of the definition of the self, which is Sat. All the three terms, Satyam Jnanam Anantam, describe the nature of each individual. Satyam Jnanam Anantam describes the nature of the entire universe. How it defines is our inquiry. But these three are the terms used in the Veda to describe our real nature. From 29 to 34 is the analysis of Sat aspect. Sat means something which exists all the time. We have finished up to verse number 32. Two more verses are remaining for the analysis of Sat. 33 and 34. These are very important verses. That's why I'm giving you a preamble to these two verses, so that you see the full picture of where we are today. First 12 mantras, Panchakosha, rejected as Anatma. Second topic, 13 to 28 verses, Jnanam, consciousness, Chaitanyam, awareness principle as my nature was concluded. Third topic, 29 to 34, the Sat aspect, which is the substratum of the whole universe. Existence principle is the topic for our current discussion. And the last topic is 37 to 43. What is Maya? What is this delusion which we all are facing? So a set of 7 verses describes this Maya principle. So chapter 3 is a very beautifully structured chapter. That is why I took it up initially for our study. After the chapter 10, I find chapter 3 is very good. Chapter 5, just to give you what comes in the future, chapter 4 describes, after chapter 3, chapter 4 is there. Chapter 4 describes the nature of the self as Jiva Srishti and Ishvara Srishti. Very beautiful chapter also. We'll do that after we finish chapter 1 and 2. Jiva Srishti, Ishvara Srishti. And then chapter 5 is the Mahavakya portion. To understand the Mahavakya, we must understand the first 4 chapters very well. That is why I am ready with all the notes for the chapter 5. And that is the essence of the entire Panchadasi 15 chapters, chapter 5. But I will reserve it for the future because I want to get everybody ready to understand the Mahavakya. It's not easy. It's a very subtle, delicate path. And it has to be done by the buddhi. The buddhi has to be sharp. The buddhi has to be focused, concentrated. Whenever we are doing these sessions, your complete attention is required because there is a structure, there is a teaching, there is a methodology which is being followed. 29th verse said that what can't be negated is the self. And they gave the name Sākṣī, witness. So when the whole world is destroyed, there is something which remains, and that is what is called as Sākṣī. That is the essence of the entire creation. Verse number 30 said, this Sākṣī is imperishable. You can destroy all the forms, but how can you destroy the formless? So many times we have this question in our mind, what happens to me after my death? And most of us, we are all afraid of death. Fear of death is a very common thing for all of us. Because we see somebody is there today and then tomorrow we see that person is no longer there. And then the intellect is completely stunned. It goes back to the past, what all the individual has done, and then ask this question, why? Intellect cannot answer this. Whenever the intellect is stumped, it is completely into a totally unknowable territory, the Veda comes into play. That is why we go to the Vedas. The Veda tells us, this person whom you have seen, the body has gone, but his essential nature remains. That is why Arjuna was taught by Lord Krishna right in the beginning, 11th verse of the 2nd chapter. Ashochananya shochaswam prajñam vadamsha bhashase gataso nagatashomsha nanushocanti panditaha. Why are you grieving over the body's death? The person is still there, but he is in a different form, in an unmanifest form, which is called as Brahman, which is called as Atman. First verse of the teaching of Lord Krishna, he gives the highest point right in the beginning, first verse. That is the style of Upanishadic teaching. Taittiriya Upanishad, right in the first verse, says in the second chapter, first verse, first section, Brahma vida apnoti param tadesham yukta satyam jnanam anantam brahma yo veda nihitam guhayam parame yoman. Discover this Brahman in the heart, in the cave of your intellect. Directly right in the first verse, so that the student knows that he is in search of something which is eternal. So if I find that eternal, am I not then becoming immortal? Very, very pertinent question you should ask. The Veda is telling me, teaching me, there is a something which is eternal, timeless, spaceless. Let it be called anything. But first of all, you should understand there is something. And that conviction should be there in a seeker right in the beginning of the spiritual path. The moment that conviction comes, then the rest of the journey becomes easier. I'm only searching for that which is the permanent, eternal self. And the moment I recognize that self, I will be able to get conviction that that is my nature. So 30th verse talked about imperishability of this Sat principle. The 31st verse, Swami Vidyaranya brought up a Purva Pakshi. Purva Pakshi means an opponent. Opponent is nothing but your own mind, your own intellect, which asks a question. You are telling me that when there after death there is something, but I think there is nothing. When I remove all the 5 koshas, I do not experience anything. Therefore, my conclusion is nothing is this whole Jagat. That is what the Purva Pakshi wrongly understands. And there, Swami Vidyaranya says, what you call as nothing is the self. It is your own nature, which is the imperishable nature. And in verse number 32, he goes again and tries to give the conviction to the student. The methodology of revealing your own nature is neti-neti. Why he uses this methodology, I have explained in that verse. There is something called as paroksha, which is far away, which we indicate as that. That heaven, that soul, that Atma, that Brahman, that house, anything which is paroksha. Paroksha means not in front of the sense organs. Whatever is in front of the sense organs, how do we say this, 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 which is called as pratyaksha. My sense organs can perceive. But when I say not this, not this, not this, or not that, not that, not that, it means I am negating pratyaksha pramana and paroksha jnana. What remains then? When these two are gone, what remains is something called as aparoksha jnanam. The knowledge belonging to neither the faraway object, neither the ones in front of us, but it is the subject. And that subject is revealed by neti-neti in Brihadaneka Upanishad 3 times. That is what Vidyaranya takes here as a pramanam for this Sat principle. Now today we will see verse number 33 and then 34. 2 verses are there which covers the Sat aspect. Let me just play the verse.
Idam rupam tu yadyavat, idam rupam tu yadyavat, tatyuktam shakyate khilam, tatyuktam shakyate khilam, ashakyo hyanidam rupaha, ashakyo hyanidam rupaha, sa atma bhadavarjitaha, sa atma bhadavarjitaha.
Idam rupam tu yad yavat. This world can be referred as this. Tat tyaktum sakyet akhilam. What is this can be negated. You can negate whatever is referring to this. Asakyo hyanidam rupa sa atma bhada varjitaha. Whatever is not this can never be negated. Why? Because it happens to be the witness. This is the essence of this verse. It is a continuation of the same topic of Sat principle. Sat means it exists all the time. Trikale api tishtati Sat. It exists in the past, it exists now, it will exist in the future. And that is why it is called as the immortal self, eternal self, beyond the pervasion of time. There is something. The world is known as this, and whatever is known as this can be negated. How? In the sleep state, I don't say this world is there. I don't talk about this body. I don't talk about this mind. I don't talk about these relatives of mine. They are all in unmanifest condition. So the matter, what Vedanta says is, matter exists in 2 conditions. One condition is in the Jagrata Avastha, the waking state. It is called as the manifest condition. This is only from Vedanta, not science. Science does not talk about these 2 conditions and so on. This is the way the Veda analyzes the world. The second condition of the matter principle is unmanifest condition, when the mind, the internal antakaranam, the instrument of perception, when that is not active, when that is at rest, the world goes to rest. It goes into unmanifest condition. which is the Karana Sharira, causal prapancha. This is how we understand Tattvabodha. See, when we try to initially learn the Tattvabodha, all this depth doesn't come in. But when we do texts like this, the depth of the vision of the Veda comes out very beautifully. So not this is the self. Neti-neti. Na iti, iti Atma. That is the nature of the self. The self can never be negated. Why? Because I'm there in the sleep state. That is what is our inquiry. Who am I in the sleep state? I am existing, but I do not know the world. Is this condition belonging to me? Each and every one will say, yes, of course it belongs to me. Because I am there. I am not extinct in the sleep state. Even when the body is gone, this Sat principle survives. The Chit principle survives. In the sleep state, the unmanifest condition of the universe is known by a principle which is called as Sākṣī. That Sākṣī is the object of revelation in the Veda, especially the Veda Anta portion, which is called as Upanishad. So this self can never be an object of perception, but it is ever the perceiver, the ultimate perceiver. The mind is the relative perceiver with reference to the external world in the Jagrat Avastha. That's all. Mind is a knower. It is a pramata. Only in the Jagrat Avastha. What happens in the Sushupti state? The mind is not the knower. The Sākṣī is the knower. The Sat principle is the knower. And that Sat principle is my real nature. Idam rupam tu yat yavad tat akhilam tyaktum shakyete tam. Idam rupam, all this which is pratyaksham, indriyas, for the world, indriya is the pratyaksham. Indriya means the sense organ. My eyes, my ears, my skin, my nose, my tongue, this is one set of indriyas, the power of seeing, the power of hearing. That is what is called as the source of knowledge. There is another source of knowledge for the mind. That source of knowledge, that light of illumination is called as Sākṣī. So if I ask you, how do you know your mind? How do you know your thoughts? You are in deep contemplation about a topic. Let it be any topic you want to think about. It may be about your daughter's marriage. You are thinking, should I go for this boy or that boy? Or should I go for another course? If suppose you're a student, you're thinking, shall I do a course in computer science or a course in medical science? It can be on any topic. And you have closed your eyes and thinking about it. What is the illumination in which, the light in which you know these thoughts are running in your mind? That light is called as Sākṣī. That light, you can never negate it according to the Veda. Negate means what? You can never say it doesn't exist, because it always exists. Even when the body is not there, this Sat is there. I accept the Veda as a pramanam, like I accept the eyes as a pramanam for form and color.
idam
And it says, Veda says, this Sat, this Chit cannot be negated. It is your nature. The world may go into unmanifest or manifest condition, but Sat remains. I have never known this fact in my life. This is something new. The thoughts are not known to our senses. Thoughts, I repeat, thoughts are not known to our sense organs. My eyes do not know my thoughts. My ears do not know my thoughts. Thoughts are a function of the antakaranam. Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasagandha are all called as idam, this, because they are perceived by the indriya pratyaksha. By the sense organs, they are perceived. There is a perceiver which is perceiving the world. The perceived world consists of 5 objects called as Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasa, Gandha. I'm sure you all know the meaning of this. Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasa, Gandha is the nature of the objects. And the nature of the object is perceived by the mind. By the senses, they are perceived, but ultimately the mind is the perceiver of the senses. External space is not known to the senses or mind. This is a fact revealed in the Veda. Until I heard this, I never thought about this also. You can all experience it yourself. It is known to only Sākṣī. When the Sākṣī is there, the space is known. Space is known by Sākṣī. There is no other pramanam for space. Objects in space is known by the senses, but the space by itself is known directly by the Sākṣī. Space itself is an element, one of the 5 elements. It has got origination in the Maya Shakti. Suppose you close your eyes, you become aware of space. That you become aware of sound. This is what we normally see in our meditation also. I say normally you close your eyes, then what happens? I am in the space of my Sākṣī. That reflected consciousness has got Chit Abhasa. So I am one with that. So I see only form and color, not the space. Sound is a property of space. I can't hear, taste, smell, or see space. Space is Sākṣī Pratyaksham. And that Sākṣī Pratyaksham, because it is Sākṣī Pratyaksham, it is called as this space. And that space. This room space is small. That room space is big. Body, mind, thoughts, ignorance, space, gross, subtle, causal, tadakilam, all the universe, for me is called as idam, this. And what is ajñānam, ignorance? Ignorance is solidified, homogeneous, nothing which is experienced in sleep. Solidified, homogeneous, undifferentiated is called as ignorance. Actually, it is tamoguna, darkness. Why do we go to sleep? Because of this tamoguna. Tamoguna is a prakriti, aspect of Maya Shakti. Three gunas, sattva, rajas and tamas. Because of tamoguna, we all go to sleep. Because that is the nature of prakriti. Prakriti means the 5 elements. My body is made up of 5 elements. And the nature of the 5 elements is it will go into unmanifest condition. What is experienced? Object of experience. Blankness or ignorance. Suppose I say, I don't know Russian language. I don't know Spanish language. What happens? You are conceptualizing something in your mind which is called as Russian or Spanish or Arabic or Japanese language. You have heard about it. And you are saying, my mind doesn't know that. But mind not knowing that is known by what in this body? And that is what is called as Sākṣī. Even I don't know is an object of experience, object of knowledge. I am is the pure knowledge. I don't know Russian or I don't know Japanese is an object for this mind, for this Sākṣī. Ajñānam is not known to senses, but to Sākṣī. Like space is known only to Sākṣī directly. There is no intermediate. Don't miss this point that Sākṣī is the ultimate knower. If Ajñānam is not known, how can we accept it is there? Suppose you say, no, it is Ajñānam is, suppose you say, I don't know what is ignorance. But then we all experience it. Maya karyam is karya anumeyam. This waking state is a karyam. It is an effect. And what is a karanam? The karanam is the cause. Karanam means a substratum. That light of consciousness, which is called as Brahman, is the substratum. Nobody can see this Shakti. An individual doesn't have the ability to see the Maya Shakti of Ishvara. It is a power which exists in the world, which my eyes cannot perceive it. But it exists. How do I know? Only through the Veda. Maya is there, the Shakti is there, Ishvara, the creator is there. I know because I see the world. If I see the world, there has to be a creator of the world. That creator must have Shakti. That is how I analyze the world. Ajñānam, seen by everybody, it is known by everyone. It is a bhava padartha. Bhava means it is known. It is unknown. Ignorance is known. Here, ajñānam is not just the absence of a pot or the world. It is ajñānam of myself. Ajñānam is a technical word in Vedanta. And what does it mean? It means I do not know myself, the real nature of the jiva. That is what is technical nature of the word called ajñānam, ignorance. Normally in worldly parlance, we will say ignorance means ignorance of the worldly objects. But here it is the ignorance of the subject. Absence of knowledge of objects is what is called in the worldly sense as ignorance. There is no elephant in the room. How do I know? Because I am seeing that. In Vedanta, I don't see that. I am ignorant of the self. This is a different ignorance. It is a subjective ignorance. And this is what is experienced in deep sleep state. So the deep sleep state has got a covering, a veiling of my nature. That veiling is what is called as ajñānam. It is a Maya, it is a part of Maya Shakti. It is an amsha of Maya. See, this is how we go deeper and deeper in our analysis. Even ignorance, we go deeper. And we have to reach the ultimate self, the knower, the ultimate Atma. But this is the methodology. So this is the highway on which we have to travel. What all will come in the highway is described in this analysis. So in Ishvara, again now we are back in the path of inquiry. What are we saying? In Ishvara, the sattva part of Maya Shakti is predominant. Sattva aspect. Therefore, Ishvara is all-knowing principle. That is what we will study in our next chapter, number 1, which we will be doing after the chapter 3. Maya Shakti. That is predominantly sattvic in nature when we take the creator. What happens to me, the jiva? In me, the jiva, this Maya Shakti is tamo pradhana. It is called as malina sattva. Malina sattva means sattva which is overpowered by rajas and tamas. Jiva is also an amsha of Maya. Ishvara is also an amsha of Maya. But the gunas which are there in both of them are totally different. The proportion of gunas. Maya consists of 3 gunas, Sattva, Rajas and Tamas, chapter 14 of Bhagavad Gita. Full analysis Maya Shakti is there. So Jiva, the Jiva, have got Tama Pradhana. Tama Pradhana covers the nature of the self in the sleep state. That is why I have no knowledge about myself and about the world. And what Veda does is, it removes that ignorance by knowledge. And what is the knowledge? You are there in the sleep state as Atma. This is the bold declaration of the Shruti. You are overpowered by tamas in the sleep state, but know this nature in the waking state. After the knowledge also, you will be overpowered, but you will not take that as your nature. Today, what do we say? I go to sleep, I don't know anything, I don't know anything, I don't know anything about the world, I don't know who am I don't know all that. But now you know that you are there as the Sat principle. When the mind goes to sleep, it does not mean that you are not there. This is the teaching of the Veda. Therefore, when I do not experience the world in my sleep state, or in a death experience. It does not mean, or in a birthless state. Suppose I'm my state before I was born. In all these three, the condition of the mind is what we should keep in mind. There is a state which is beyond the state of the mind. The three conditions belong to the mind, but there is a Sākṣī principle, a Sat principle, which is not overpowered by the Shakti of Maya, because that is the substratum on which the Maya Shakti exists. Like, for example, dream exists on the waker, the Shakti of the waker. Dream cannot control the waker. So similarly, this Maya Shakti cannot control Ishvara. What is deep sleep? Deep sleep is, what is our experience in deep sleep? That is what we are analyzing now. See, we are going deeper and deeper into this verse so that we understand the full implication of neti-neti. Neti-neti is just not two words. It means all this. We have to use the two words, but arrive at the Atma. Because many people have taken this neti in a wrong way. That is why Vidyaranya goes very deep into this, and he gives us this, several verses, 29 to 34, 6 verses, to know what is this neti-neti. So nothingness is not negative experience, but it is a positive experience of nothingness. I am knowing that there is nothing. It is not a abhava. If it is negative experience, unless someone reminds us, we will not know about it. Like, I don't know Russian. Someone asks me, and then I remind myself, oh, I don't know this. Suppose somebody asks me, do you know Sanskrit? Then only I come to know, no, I don't know, because I'm using my Sākṣī to check my mind. So that is how, if nothingness is negative, I will never know it. Because I know nothingness is there, it is called as Bhava Padanta. The tallest waterfall in Venezuela, Angel Falls. That's what is there. But I don't know. Somebody asked me, what is the tallest waterfall? I don't know. Immediately I say, I don't know, because it is not in my purview of my mind. If I had gone to Venezuela, if I had gone to, if I had gone to Buffalo and seen the waterfall there, I know. So in deep sleep, I experience nothing is a positive experience. It is a concrete own experience. There is no reminder required. It is a causal realm. There is a third realm which exists. Waking state is one realm of consciousness. Dream state is another realm of consciousness. Sleep state is the third realm of consciousness. I have to go beyond the sleep state to understand my real nature. So, idam rupam tu yada yadyavat means I reject the sthula shariram, sukshma shariram, karana shariram. I reject the indriya pratyaksham, manasa pratyaksham, and then arrive at Sākṣī. So akhilam means all vritti jnanam. There are two types of jnanam I said last week. One is called as Sākṣī Rupa Jnanam, Another is vritti jnanam. We'll be studying that more. Anyway, I'm telling you just for your information at this stage. So we can drop all the vritti jnanam, but we cannot drop the Sākṣī jnanam. Akasha, kalaha, time, vrittihi, thoughts, they are all dropped in deep sleep state because they're all vritti jnanam. They come when the mind is there and they end when the mind is resolved. This is the nature of our creation. If I come to know through the Veda that the creation has got two conditions, manifest, unmanifest, in the sleep state, I see everything and the unmanifest condition, and I remain as a Sākṣī of that unmanifest condition. That is what is called as Atma Jnanam. It is called as Brahma Vidya. Vritti Jnanam is incidental. Sākṣī Jnanam is intrinsic. Ignorance or ajñānam is Sākṣī Pratyaksham. Sākṣī Pratyaksham means it is known directly. There is no medium required like the mind. The moment we go to sleep, the mind is already gone to sleep. There is something which exists, which is watching our sleep condition. That watcher is called as Sākṣī. Will my mind ever know the Sākṣī? No. Vedas very emphatically says Sākṣī is not an object of experience, but it is the very subject of the experiencer. Time is incidental to the mind. Time comes when the mind is there. When the mind is not there, there is no concept of time itself. Time is born when the mind is awake. Time goes to unmanifest condition when the mind has gone to unmanifest state. When do you give up ajñānam? In two conditions. One is nirvikalpa samadhi state. That means you don't have any more thoughts. Then you give up the ignorance part. The second is with the knowledge of the self, I don't bother about thoughts at all. I say, who am I? I am the Sākṣī, which is aware of the unmanifest condition of the world. That's all. And that is called as Turiya Avastha. In Mandukya Upanishad, Jagrat, Swapna, Sushupti, these are the three realms of the Pramata, the knower, the mind. There is another state which is called as Turiya Avastha. And this Turiya Avastha has the knowledge of the self. See how deep we are going. You see, this analysis is very beautiful. If you follow all step by step, you will reach your true state. No doubt about it. It's very simple. Just follow these discussions step by step. In the Turiya Avastha, when I exist, it is the knowledge of the self. It is not the waking state. It is not the dream state. It is not the nirvikalpa state of samadhi, but it is the pure state of the self. Nirvikalpa samadhi is different in yoga philosophy and it is different in Vedanta. In Vedanta, through Shravanam, Mananam and Nididhyasanam, whatever state you arrive at, that is also called as Nirvikalpa Samadhi. In the yoga state, in the yoga philosophy, the moment you drop your vritti in the waking state, that is what is called as samadhi. In Vedanta, nirvikalpa samadhi means rise of another vritti, which is called as brahmakara vritti. Aham brahma asmi vritti. A thought arises, I am that pure self. This is a natural thought which comes in, and that thought is called as Brahma Akara Vritti. The formless, pure consciousness becomes known to the jiva, and that formless nirguna avastha is called as Brahmakara Akara Vritti. It is a form of Brahman. And once you realize that, what happens? Aham Brahmasmi becomes very strong. I am that pure consciousness. I am that Sat Chit Ananda principle. It becomes a very natural acceptance conviction. This is very beautifully explained in chapter 1, where the whole nirvikalpa samadhi state of a yogic philosophy is explained. How a thought becomes extinct, and how in that thoughtless state I see my real nature. Abidance in this Atma without the nirvikalpa samadhi is not possible. It has to come either through knowledge or through that yogic philosophy. You must have that experience of that thoughtless state. Jnani has no ajñānam because he has no causal body. Because his causal body is what? Ignorance. Ignorance has gone. Ignorance of what? Not of the world. Ignorance of the self, which exists beyond the three states. The moment the jnani says, yes, I am pure Brahman, immediately what happens to him? Ignorance goes away first. When the ignorance is gone, what happens is the waking and the dream state, they lose the power to control the jiva. The causal body is the ajñānam in a person, the sleep state. Jnani continues the sthula and sukshma because of prarabdha karma. So does the jnani have prarabdha karma? Yes, he has prarabdha karma, but he has no sanchita karma, no agami karma. In Vichara Sagara, this is not emphasized, but in this Panchadasi, this is clearly emphasized. That the jnani has got prarabdha karma, therefore you also see him performing duties, maybe for an ashrama, maybe for a particular school or a college or a temple. You will find a jnani is there doing the puja and so on. Where do vasanas go for a jnani? Vasanas are basically the causal body person experiences in sleep. It goes to the mind, person experiences the mental disturbances. So when we experience what happens, vasanas are coming up. They are manifesting as disturbances. And therefore, we all, and this is what it is, Sākṣī pratyaksha. Vasanas are Sākṣī pratyaksha because they become thoughts. Ajñānam ends at the fall of ignorance, at the rise of the knowledge of the self. Therefore, what Vidyaranya says is, you can give up everything, but not this self, which is Satyam. The whole world is negated, Badaha, but not Satyam. Satyam alone does not undergo negation. Bada means vikara, change. What changes? Stula shariram changes. Sukshma shariram changes. Karana shariram changes. All these are undergoing change. But the substratum, the self, that Satya Atma does not go at all. It cannot be negated. That is why neti-neti means that there is an Atma which is self-revealing, which we call it as existence consciousness principle. I will continue this because this is a long verse description. I will continue this in the next week. From this slide 2 to 9, I will continue this. The explanation of this neti-neti. The second point is the second sentence in the verse, Ashakya iti anidam rupaha. I will explain, I will continue this next week. Om. Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudacchade Purnasya Purnamadhaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Okay. In case you have any questions, you can ask. Yeah, Deepak, go ahead.
I just wanted a clarification on the vrittis are the thoughts.
Correct.
And the vrittis reside in manas.
Yes.
And the vasanas are part of the causal body.
Yes.
They are also thoughts, or they are latent tendencies that are acquired.
Yes, it is latent tendency is different than thoughts. Yeah. Vasana is a tendency.
So it gives rise.
Thought is a manifest form of vasana in the mind. The moment the vasana from the causal body shifts to the sukshma shariram, it is called as vritti.
Point taken.
And it is this vasanas which are responsible for all the bubbling thoughts which come in my mind. The cause, the effect is the bubbling thoughts which may come in the form of agitations, they may come in the form of silence, they may come in the form of jealousy, they may come in the form of all the impurities in the mind.
So the Patanjali Yoga tends to give a lot of emphasis on the mind and the thought.
Exactly. Patanjali Yoga Sutras are excellent literature to study your mind.
So in a sense, when you, the cessation of thoughts, which it sort of implies, means that the vasanas are also negated.
You see, this is a yoga philosophy of the truth. They believe that the moment you have got chitta vritti nirodha, That means you get rid of all your thoughts. That itself is samadhi. That itself is realization in the yoga philosophy. But Vedanta does not accept this. Vedanta says that is the condition of the antakaranam. It is a condition of the instrument called as the mind. It is not yourself. The self is something which is beyond the mind. It is not the condition of the mind at all. This is where in Brahma Sutra, Shankaracharya goes through all the philosophies with reference to the Samadhi Avastha. Each philosophy has got a different meaning, different connotation about the Samadhi Avastha, and they derived their own philosophy based on this nature of the mind. The Buddhists also have defined their philosophy based on the mind, the antakaranam. When they say there is blankness, Vijnanamaya kosha is what they are analyzing. Vijnanam, there is no knowledge in the mind. There is blankness. Therefore, they say it is nothing. There is only nothing in the world. What Vidyaranya says is that nothing which you are saying is the self. It is a knower. It is a knower. The ultimate knower is there. Don't neglect the knower.
So what I have understood is that Advaita does not emphasize too much on the mind part. It wants to skip that.
Yes.
It go back to the knower.
It says,
but from practical terms, is it possible to go back to the knower even through the process of negation without the cessation or without the calmness or without the satvika of the mind and the cessation of the thoughts? What I'm saying is,
that's a very, Deepak, that's an excellent, that's an excellent practical question you are asking. It's a very good question. What Vedanta says is, you try to focus either on the mind or you focus on the knower of the mind. There are two aspects. Yoga focuses on the mind and its functions of vrittis. What Vedanta says is, mind is an instrument. It is an antakaranam, it is an instrument. Treat it like an instrument, don't treat it like the self. For example, when I am looking at the world and I have forgotten that I have a specs, the spectacle is a part, it's an instrument through which I'm seeing the world. I have forgotten the specs and I'm saying that there are no specs and I'm looking at the world, I'm lost. So what Vedanta says is, mind is an instrument. You exist without the mind in the sleep state. That is the starting point. So your starting point is extremely important in Vedanta. You start as consciousness and then you analyze the mind and say mind has got two conditions: manifest condition in the waking state, unmanifest condition in the sleep state. You are the Sākṣī of these two conditions of the mind. This is how Vedanta comes out with this revelation of the truth. And Panchadasi is a great text. It will reveal. I can't express to you how beautiful this text and how Vidyaranya takes it through, especially when he teaches us about Ishvara Srishti and Jiva Srishti. I again and again because I'm doing that chapter 4 for my notes. to develop the notes, it is coming again and again to my mind. See, what he says, Vidyananda says is, that don't forget that there are two worlds. One is created by Ishvara and the second is created by our own mind. And it is, we are always looking at the creation outside, and we are forgetting that there is another creation going on in our mind, the thoughts. And the Sākṣī is the one which is knowing the thoughts in the mind. Our attention is always on the world outside. We keep on looking outside, and then we analyze all the experiences related to our sense organs. So your question is, you must become aware of the mind, which is the Sākṣī. And looking at the thoughts, if you keep looking at your mind and just saying that I have got no thoughts now, that is what is called as the yoga method. What Vedanta says is, you analyze the scriptures and go through the verses. Like, for example, today we discussed and we did the meditation on that the Sākṣī is there as the substratum for waking, dream, and sleep. This is how Veda says you do meditation. Take up one verse of the scriptures, let it rotate in your mind. And when you do that, what happens is, tremendous clarity will come to you. Because what Veda says is, Vedantic meditation leads you to Atma. Aham Brahma Asmi, I am the Sākṣī. Deliberately you bring these thoughts in your mind. And
what I mean is that Ved says that it is through the process of inquiry that you dissolve your identity.
Yes.
Is that the right statement to make?
Through the process of
inquiry.
Yes, that's correct. Through the process of inquiry, you dissolve all your thoughts. The thoughts will get resolved.
An automatic process.
In an automatic process, as a result of the jnanam. As a result of Atma jnanam, the thoughts will drop.
So
of the world. Thoughts of the world, thoughts of the three states will drop by itself.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Deepak.
Thank you.
Anybody else has a question?
Uma here.
Yeah, Uma.
I have a question. The difference between us and an animal, would it be the mind? Would it be the ego? Because the animal also has the mind and the vasanas and the thoughts. But
Yeah.
I, as a human, have the ego.
Yeah, see, ego is a common thing between animals and us. When the animals also feel hunger, they also use the same ego, I-ness in the body. They are identified with the body. We also are identified with the body. That is what in Adhyasa Bhashyam, Shankaracharya beautifully says, there is no difference between the ego of a animal and the ego of man. Ego is the same. The body is identified by the animals as themselves. Human beings also identified. This is what is called as Samanya Jnanam.
Okay.
Samanya Adhyasa. This is a natural process of living. What makes the difference between the animals and the human being is, the human being can ask the question, who am I? Animals cannot ask this question. They are not brought up in that the intellect is not developed in them. They have come into the world as a bhokta. They have come to enjoy the world according to the prarabdha karma. They are supposed to enjoy certain aspects in this world, they become a bhokta and then they just go away, that's all. Whereas the inquiry, who am I, they can never make. They can never attend a class of Vedanta. They can never ask the question. They can never probe into the universe. They can never, they see all their instinct. They live a life of instincts. Whereas human beings, they live a life of vasanas. Instincts are different than vasanas. Vasanas, through vasanas, what happens? You can have a good vasana by which you can inquire about the self.
Okay.
So a big difference is in the intellect between the animals and the human beings. And between the human beings also, the intellect differs. That is why you find different kinds of human beings. There are some human beings who will never come into the field of Veda, learning, and that is decided by the three gunas, Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. In some people, Rajas is very predominant. They will always be Rajasic. They will always be thinking, what should I do next? What should I do next? What should I do next? Some people will be only tamasic. Oh, when should I go back to sleep? I had a sleep 8 hours, but I need some 2 hours sleep in the morning, again after getting up, again after lunch, again after dinner, again 2 hours. They are always looking at sleep. That is tamoguna. Or they don't want to work at all. Oh, let me just remain today. You know, I can give some excuse. I want to remain at home. I don't want to do things. That is tamoguna. So your nature of the mind decides who you are. Sattva Pradhana is a jnani, where he is always looking at the world and asking the question, what is experiencing this world? Is it the mind? Is it the sense organs? Or is it the light, which is the ultimate experiencer? So these type of questions are possible only in a sattvic mind. And all of us who are listening to the Veda, who are listening to this Panchadasi, doing analysis, see, the most important thing is, in this life of ours, are we able to look beyond our senses into the knowledge process itself in our body? This is what the Veda teaches us. See, when we do Panchadasi or Gita or Brahma Sutra or Upanishad, the beauty is the Veda tells us that analyze the knowledge process which is going on in this body. How does knowledge takes place? And then you arrive at the mind, then you arrive at the vrittis, then you arrive at the subject, then you arrive at the object, then you say there is a knower in this body called as a pramata, and so on. So this is how there is a difference between different minds. And this mind itself can undergo change, because through knowledge, you will find that more and more sattvic nature is built up in your intellect. And that is why all people who are into this field, they keep on going deeper and deeper, and till they are satisfied. They keep on going deep and deep and deep. And it is this intellect which ultimately says, Aham Brahma Asmi. The moment that conviction comes that this, see, in our mind, there are two things. One is vritti. There is a thought, which is jadam by nature. Okay, that is one portion of the mind. The second portion of the mind is a light. Which is that light which is completely glowing inside the entire antakarana. And the entire mind is being illumined by this light of consciousness. Veda tells us, focus on this light as your nature. And drop the vrittis. Keep dropping all your thoughts. Thoughts will come, go. It all depend on your vasanas. Suppose you have developed a vasana for this food, it will keep on throwing thoughts of that food. Suppose you have developed a vasana for this type of movies, then you will go after these movies. Your thoughts will keep on coming of those movies. Or thought about sound, music. Some people are attracted to only this type of music. Pop music. The whole day they will be thinking of only that music. Some people will be only thinking of writing poems, stories. Their mind will only be thinking of story after story after story.
Okay.
They are not, what Veda says is go beyond that mind. And the Veda teaches the human intellect how to go beyond the mind. See, that is the beauty of Panchadasi text. When we study this, what does it say? There is a consciousness existence principle. That consciousness existence principle is you. That is the starting point. And then it says, now you look at your mind. And then you will see that you are able to know all your thoughts of the mind. As soon as you wake up, you become aware of your thoughts. Very good. Today I am aware of my thoughts. I can do what I want with my mind. See, that is the control you get after doing this study of the scriptures.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, okay. Okay, thank you, Shikhaji.
Okay, anybody else? Yeah, Shama, go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's again probably some of it is coming from inspired by Deepak Ji's the yoga, so because for some of us individuals, and which will be a large number of people who are attending the classes, is that you have this very high desire to know. So inquiry is there, yeah, very, very intense. So that is there. On the other hand, our vasanas have, obviously there is all this from our prarabdha and all that, it's a real thing. I mean, you can't dismiss it, that
Sure,
it is
yeah.
not part of you. In other words, between your intention, I know what my goal is, I know what I want to realize, but because of the vasanas, so would you not think there is the will and intention gets affected, because the will and intention is almost like sabotaged by your vasanas or the maya or whatever we want to call it. So I'm just trying to think whether, I think Swami Vivekananda mentioned somewhere where, the jnanam and the bhakti, they are the two wings of the bird which flies, jnanam and bhakti, because bhakti gives us the power of wanting to do whatever. And the yoga is like the rudder, so it actually balances the two elements. So would you not say that for most of us, this Patanjali's Yoga Sutra should also be a very key thing to hold the two sides of us together?
Yeah, definitely, yes. You see, that's why Patanjali's Yoga Sutra is extremely useful for seekers. Because you see, especially for seekers, Ashtanga Yoga, and then he gives clearly 8 limbs of the yoga and tells us there is a yama, there is a niyama, there is a asana, there is a pratyahara, there is dhyanam. Step by step he takes us, and it is useful. We cannot neglect the power of Patanjali Yoga Sutras and how it helps the beginner.
So fundamentally, it is a good thing.
It's good. Yes,
not
absolutely.
it's
No,
not
it is,
against Vedanta.
no. Shankaracharya accepts yoga as an excellent method for developing sadhana chatushtaya sampatti.
Okay.
To develop the fitness of the mind, yoga is useful. To develop the strength in the mind, yoga is useful. Because it defines the impurities of the mind as panchakleshas. And you analyze them, Muda, Vikshipta, all the states or conditions of the mind are beautifully described. Shankaracharya accepts all that.
Okay.
He accepts all this samadhi. You see, even Vidyaranya, he accepts the samadhi as one of the, in the chapter 1 of Panchadasi, there is a very deep analysis of the samadhi state. Very deep analysis. I mean, he accepts the samadhi state and he goes, but only thing what he does is he goes beyond the samadhi. But he describes the samadhi state beautifully in the end portion of chapter 1. The whole samadhi state is taken up for discussion. And what is that samadhi state and how one can see, he has got a wonderful way of using the samadhi state to describe Brahmakara vritti. He says Brahma Akara vritti comes because of samadhi state. And see, that is the beauty of Vidyaranya. He accepts the samadhi state, he accepts the Shravanam, Mananam, Nididhyasanam, Vedantic meditation also. Both.
So therefore, really, all the 4 faculties of the mind are therefore taken up by all the 4 yogas, isn't it?
Yes.
Jnana yoga, karma yoga, bhakti is for our emotional. So so that's a very, so all of them really, I mean,
they
even
are
for the
useful, they are extremely useful for the Chitta Shuddhi.
Yeah.
All of them are very useful for the purity of mind.
Yeah. And so this is an assessment which I guess each one of us as individuals, we have to ask ourselves as to which is our predominant part of our mind. Am I more karma yoga led? Am I more jnana yoga?
Yes.
Because in order to know that what should be our predominant method, because
See, Shama, your questions are all extremely good for practical living in this world. See, when you want to live in the world, and starting the spiritual journey, you have to go through all the 4 yogas, like how Bhagavad Gita gives us. That is the initial part. In the 12th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Lord describes the bhakti in a big way, and he says the bhakta is very, very important. Lord Krishna has a beautiful method of accepting all the yogas.
Yeah, no, that is what is beautiful.
Yeah, he accepts everything. He talks about bhakti yoga, he talks about jnana yoga, he talks about karma yoga.
But you do accept that each one of us has a definitely predominance of one or the other. Yeah.
All this
because that would explain, because quite often, you sometimes wonder, like, I'm remembering Deepakji, that while on one hand, you have got no difficulty in understanding the clarity of the, jnana which we are studying and which we understand. On the other hand, one little wind of this thing, it actually rocks you, shakes you from your roots, and you think, goodness me, how can this be? You can't even recognize yourself.
Yeah, that is the impact of prarabdha karma. It is an impact of prarabdha karma, which is, it is smashing our knowledge again and again. It's like the waves in the ocean. The prarabdha karma and our, it is the waves which come, it lashes one after the other, Yesterday you had one experience, by the time you can forget that experience, another bigger wave has come. Another big episode has come in life. By the time you go through the big episode, another bigger one has come.
Would you accept that there is also some description about, all of us, we think we can think, but 90% of our thoughts are literally emotions.
Oh, yeah,
And I find that very, very frightening to think, God, I cannot believe it,
Yeah, it is emotions, but knowledge can put an end to emotions.
Over a period of time, not...
Yes. The more you dive into knowledge, especially the principle of knowledge, the theory of knowledge, the more you delve into the theory of knowledge, how knowledge works in the intellect.
Yeah.
The more, and Vidyaranya is a master at it.
Yeah.
He's a master in analyzing knowledge. Especially when you go through the first 5 chapters of the Panchadasi, you will get a complete grasp of knowledge. How the mind works, how consciousness is beyond the mind. He will convince you. I know you just have to wait. There are all these 5 chapters are meant to rise above the mind.
Yeah, well, I just wanted to share that as to how most recently I was really reading about this. There was some neuroscience, this thing about, and one of those things like which we value and cherish so much, love in human life, love for humanity, love for this one and that one. And it just feels so amazing, literally, how it is an Atma principle, because what we think is coming from some very deep, higher level is actually so much our own neurochemistry, which is playing it up, all those various hormones and stuff.
Yes.
And I thought, this is really madness. I was so really, because you just think, yes, there are certain values in life which are so cherished, the love that you have for the humanity, only to realize that that is nothing but part of the anatma again. Because it's only neurochemistry, isn't it?
Yes.
It's your biology.
What you call it as neurochemistry
is an Atma.
Vidyaranya calls it as Jiva Srishti.
Jiva Srishti, yeah.
Okay, yeah. You with your mind you make it.
Yes.
But I am saying but what I am debating that is it is not the mind, which is what our Vedanta will tell. It's a pure biology. There is a biology bribes you into this kind of this thing, because as humans, our basic need, humans could not have survived unless we had this one single common instinct that we have to cooperate. The only reason we cooperate is, one is, of course, subsistence. We can't get food for our own selves if we want to do it by ourselves. You need a whole cooperation of so many different things. Otherwise, in ourselves, in our mighty intellect, we would have all survived on our own. So you need for that, of course, for reproduction and all that. But even for all this humanity, and all of that, it is all determined by our biology. I was really horrified. I just didn't like it, actually. I must tell you, to be very honest, I didn't like it that there's a bribery. A biology bribes us, because we as humans, otherwise we would have still been at the lower part of the food cycle, Now we are on the top of the food cycle. So, but what I was interpreting it is that it is, biology means anatma.
Correct.
So that's really what was very helpful, because where the Vedanta and the neurochemistry was exactly saying the same thing.
That's correct. That's a good comparison, Shama.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Akshay, you have mentioned about the 5 kleshas, the obstacles of mentioned in the Yoga Sutras: avidya, asmita, raga, dvesha, abhinivesha. These are the 5 kleshas, and Patanjali takes each one of them and he comes out with the sutras to explain each of this. And then you see the only difficulty I find, and which has been shared with many people, is they come with a lot of terminologies, you know, a lot of definitions we need to understand if you want to go deeper and deeper. Okay, these 5 is easy. But then the more you go deeper, samprajnata, all those, it goes it goes into too many technical terms. And that is why in Yoga Sutras you get lost. You know, after some time when you read the Yoga Sutras, after about 20, 30, 50 sutras, you go deeper and then you get totally lost, unless until you've got a very sharp mind and you know Sanskrit extremely well, you know. Whereas Brahma Sutra is very different. It goes into the details of the Upanishadic mantras and then says that the real meaning of this mantra is this. It is not what you think, because mantras have a tendency to bring contradictions also. Brahma Sutra is one which removes all the contradictions in the mantras. Dva Suparna Sayuja Sakaya. 2 birds are there. Is it the same Jiva bird in the Upanishad is talking, or is it the Jiva and Sākṣī bird? One is eating the fruits, another is not eating the fruits. So these
I love that one. Very, very nice. That's a beautiful one.
It's a very beautiful example in the Mundaka Upanishad. And it can straight away gives you the path to realization. You analyze this one example, it will give you straight. It's a fantastic metaphor to come to the realization of the Sākṣī. Okay. Anybody else has any other question? Is Babu Bhai here?
Yeah.
Yeah, Babu Bhai, tell me. You have any questions?
I just want to know this regarding the animals. Do they have egos?
Yes, they have. You see, they have ego. This is mentioned in the Adhyasa Bhashyam. If you go back to the Adhyasa Bhashyam notes, there is one verse which deals with this animals and human beings, how they are the same. Now, there Shankaracharya in Adhyasa Bhashyam, he takes the example of a cow. And he says a cow, it identifies with the body, it has got a mind, it has got an ego. Now, if somebody comes with grass in their hands, it will walk towards that person. Suppose the cow sees somebody coming with a stick. So the cow recognizes that person is come to beat me, so it will run away from him.
And the human being does the same.
A human being has got the same raga dvesha. Raga dvesha, a person likes something, some good things comes in front of the sense organs, the human being runs after it. Some human beings see some things which doesn't like, it goes away from it.
The discriminatory.
So, there is one verse. In that verse, he is very clear. He says there is adhyasa happening in the human mind. It is adhyasa happening in the animal mind also. Both are the same. But what is the difference? The human mind can analyze that and understand this adhyasa. And it can come out of this adhyasa also by knowing that I am the Sākṣī of my mind. I am not the mind, I am not the body, I am the pure awareness. This can be done only by human beings. And the moment you do this proper adhyasa, proper superimposition is clear to you, you will understand that I am totally different than this mind. So the answer to your question, Baba, is yes. Why do we say the animals have got an ego? Whatever the human being does, the animal also does. When the animals are hungry, they will run after food. We also go to a restaurant and grab a food. We grab a sandwich. When the animal is thirsty, it will look for water. It will run for water. In the desert, animals will run for water. We also will run for a Coke. So, and then procreation, all this, all the 5 sense organs, they are all similar in nature between the animals and us. What differentiates us is our vasanas. We have positive vasanas to make a change in our life. Whereas the animals, they cannot change their life. They cannot transform their instincts. Whereas we can transform our vasanas. From a rajasic, tamasic vasanas, we can, by study of scriptures, we can make it more sattvic.
I had this question actually, Shekharji, this exact question of this transition of the gunas and vasanas. I mean, yes. How gunas play a role in the self-inquiry. I just had this question.
Correct.
How do we do that?
Okay.
You mentioned, so if vasanas and gunas are interchangeable?
Yeah, see, the gunas means you're talking about sattva, rajas, and tamas.
Yeah.
Now, vasanas are individual. They are not the general maya. Maya consists of sattva, rajas, and tamas. That is the nature of the 5 elements. Vasanas are related to the individual mind, individual karana sharira. Okay, now the gunas, in the climate of the gunas, the mind operates. You see, in the Islam, the climate means in the environment of in the temperature of the gunas, the mind operates. The 3 gunas are Maya Shakti, that is Ishvara. That in that environment, the mind with the vasanas comes and has a play. It plays. Now, your question is, can we change our vasanas? Through the help of the gunas. Ultimately, we are in the environment, we can take the help of the gunas and make the mind more suitable for it to grow in knowledge. Whenever we make an attempt, see, all our attempt to study this Vedanta is all knowledge-based. Which means what? We are trying to educate our intellect. We are trying to educate our intellect in order that it can realize its own nature. So sattva is what we are trying to develop. But we may have a tendency for rajas. You see, our composition is sattva, rajas, and tamas.
Yeah.
It is.
What I understand, guna is my characteristics of my being.
Yes.
I come with a combination of gunas.
Yes.
And you're saying that the rajas part of the guna could be a latent tendency coming from the vasanas.
Correct. Yes.
And that becomes predominant.
Yes.
Characteristic of my being.
Yes.
But I have to move towards sattva to
correct.
Reach the ultimate goal.
That's correct.
So how do we do that?
By developing sattvic qualities. You see, in the 17th chapter, 16th chapter, and the 18th chapter,
18th chapter, yes.
17 Gita, Bhagavad Gita, 17th chapter, 18th chapter talks about sattva, rajas, and tamas of ahara, sattva, rajas, tamas of yajna, dana, tapas. You know, all these Krishna taught only for us to change from tamasic to rajasic to sattvic.
And that's in our control.
It is in our control. We can. And that is what we have done. We cannot reach this level of understanding the scriptures if you have not done that. We all have changed. We were very, very tamasic before coming to the Vedas. Before coming to this study itself, we were extremely rajasic and tamasic. This study has made our mind more sattvic. For each one of us, I'm giving you a blanket thing for all of us. Everybody here has become more sattvic than he was before. 100%, it's a guarantee. This is from Lord Krishna. He says that you cannot do Vedantic study without being sattvic. Your mind will not allow you. So, we have a great blessing in us. We are all sattvic. The only thing is we need more correct knowledge. And the more we understand the knowledge principle, how knowledge works in our mind through the method of, I'm using two terms which comes in the 4th chapter of the Panchadasi. It is called as vritti vyapti and phala vyapti. How these two operate in the mind and how we are able to go out in the world and operate. All our transactions are based on these two technical terms. But there is a third thing, which is, this is all in the transactional, vyavaharika world, vritti vyapti and phala vyapti happen. Continuously it's happening. But Sākṣī is there at a paramarthika level. You see, Sākṣī consciousness is at a different level. I should understand the difference between the two levels. Anyway, let me not elaborate too much because it will need a little bit of background of chapter 4. You know, chapter 4 of Panchadasi, you can you can read chapter 4 of Panchadasi on your own, and especially verse number 30 of Panchadasi chapter 4. It tells you about this two, how this vritti vyapti and phala vyapti is described in chapter 4, verse 30, 31, 32, 3 verses. Now, and how we can observe, which is something beyond Ishvara Srishti and Jiva Srishti. In this world, creation has been explained by what is Jiva Srishti, what is Ishvara Srishti. But there exists Brahman, which is beyond Ishvara Srishti and Jiva Srishti, and that is the light in which both is happening. And that is called as the light of knowledge. That is what is jnanam, which is described in this chapter 3.
And
analysis, you know.
And is it fair to say again, Deepak, just a reference that, you know, your repeated stress on study of scriptures, study of Vedas.
Yes,
so
yes.
not only Shravanam, Mananam, but which is how does that apply to me, to my life? You
that
know?
is the
Mananam, that contemplation.
Yes,
but
yes.
the vasana part of it,
yeah,
I believe that when you're doing regular meditation, it is by itself clearing up some of the vasana.
Yes.
Yeah.
Even without the meditation, when you're reading, when you're doing this current study, you're going through some of these talks, your vasanas are getting reduced.
Even listening.
the pressure of the vasanas will get reduced and further, allowing you to do more and more shravanam.
Correct. Thank you.
Okay. So, Bhagavad, is that all you had?
A second question is, like we human beings, we have these three gunas. How do we related to the three animals? How many animals?
You see, the animals have got more rajas. Even in animals, there are three types of animals: sattvic animals, rajasic animals, and tamasic animals. Cow is supposed to be sattvic animal. A tiger is supposed to be a rajasic animal. An elephant is supposed to be a tamasic animal. Similarly, in humans also, there will be rajas, tamas, and sattvic.
Thank you.
Even in plants also there are rajasic plants, tamasic plants, and sattvic plants. Tulasi is supposed to be a sattvic plant. Cactus is supposed to be a tamasic cactus. Tulsi is sattvic. And then you have all vegetables, they are all giving us nature, all the sattvic, the foods. You have all the vegetarian food is all sattvic.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Rajasic plants they may attack.
Yes. No, Rajasic food is also there. No? In the 17th chapter, 18th chapter, the Rajasic food is all the pungent food and spicy food. These are all Rajasic.
Shekhar, are you saying that vegetarianism therefore is an essential part of our process of enlightenment?
Yes. See what they say
Because
in some of the
in the Vedas doesn't talk about that.
Yeah. See, Veda says that the food for all is only vegetarian food. Even for the animals, they depend on the vegetarian food. So in the Veda, when they talk about food, annam, they say it is only vegetarian. That's all. That is why they say there is no talk of non-vegetarian food in the Vedas.
Vedic sacrifices and all was always a part of Vedic sacrifices. And
no, that is a separate matter. I mean, I talk about annam, the food. Sacrifice is a different matter. But when you talk about food, annat eva purushaha. In Taittiriya Upanishad, 2nd chapter, 1st verse of the first section, the description of creation is given up to the earth. From space comes air, fire comes water, and then earth. From earth comes the plants. And the plants, then they give the food, annam, for the whole creation. That is what it said in the Taittiriya Upanishad. Because even animals whom we consume, now they are also dependent on the vegetarian food only. They live on vegetarian. Anyway, so basically to answer your question, the food is an extremely important aspect of being sattvic. That is why in all the ashramas, they will just serve sattvic food. Simple, non-spicy, very, very simple food. And actually that is enough for our body. See, if you really see, we don't really need a festival 12-course dinner every day, we can survive with just simple, if you really see how a jnani or how some of these, they just have a simple food. Simple, maybe a little bit of rice, little bit of chapati, and little bit of, that should be enough for the maintenance of the body. That is what Veda describes as sattvic. Food is a very big topic. I can go on and on, but let me stop. Okay.
And then why they are killing each other and eating?
Yeah. Anyway, let's stop the discussion on the food aspect. Okay. Any other questions? Rohit, nice to see you back.
Yeah, after a long time, we just got married, and
Yes.
congratulations, Rohit.
Congratulations.
Thank
Rohit.
you. Hello, Shekhaji. It's nice to see you also. I'm resuming class after a very long time. So
Yeah, that's right. I see you after a very long time. I hope you had a good time
yes, I did.
and you're back in form, and I'm sure you'll continue the classes.
Yes.
Congratulations to you. Rohit got married recently, and you know, you can see the smile on his face, a blooming face.
Celebration.
Yes. Okay. Thank you and good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Namaste, Shekhaji. Hari Om.
Good night. Hari Om.
Hari Om. Yeah.